Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Matt Willson Kickoff Show. Semifinal round is upon us. I am Mike Daggs. He is Gerald Smith. Gerald, there's only a couple of games left this season. We've got two tonight, then the championship, and season 23 is done.
Yeah, and look, it's been quite this season. We got a couple of teams right here. You guys are looking to get in at first championship in a long time. Minnesota looking to go to championship, but we know that one of the teams on the opposite end of it will not be going back to the championship this season as they were last.
Yeah, the championship rematch from last season is going to take place in just about a half hour's time here in the semifinal round. Like you said, one of them not going back. So we'll get more into that in just a little bit. First, let's recap the quarterfinal round, and then we're going to get into a little segment for each of the four teams, their road to the semifinals. Then, of course, we'll break down the two games tonight, make one more pick, and then head off to the broadcast booth. So see a lot of you in the chat already. Appreciate you guys being here and supporting us on this show. Means a lot to us to see you all, just not only tuning in, but participating in the chat as well. The chat's working, so I can actually see it. So hey, that's positive. Things are looking up already. All right, let's recap the quarterfinal round. First off, we had Baltimore at Minnesota getting things kicked off for us in the quarterfinals. In the first quarter, it looked like it might have been a defensive slugfest. There was no score until 52 seconds left in the first quarter. Minnesota finally getting into the end zone. They find themselves up 14-0 before Baltimore would actually put 14 unanswered of their own, but at a cost. Jack Wigmore left in the second quarter, 4 minutes to go in the second quarter, would not return. It's a risk. Baltimore, at least a couple weeks in a row, was sending Jack Wigmore on these sneaks up the middle. You only can take so many hits. Got knocked out of the game, and it would cost them. Minnesota would go on a tear. They ended up winning that one 48-21.
Yeah, and I think the turning point of that game was when Baltimore tied it up 14-14 when the backup quarterback came in and scored a touchdown, and then in the ensuing kickoff, Minnesota ran it all the way back for a touchdown, completely took the wind out of their sails, and Minnesota ran away with it.
Robert Henson in the chat says, can't wait to see who Dags picks in the Minnesota-Mexico City game. He's on the edge of his seat waiting. Well, you're going to have to keep on waiting. I can't imagine who I could be picking. Go Aztecs. All right, Carolina at Mexico City. Speaking of the Aztecs, listen, that would give me anxiety for a couple of hours after that Baltimore-Minnesota game. The Aztecs did strike first. Carolina quickly responded. There was 3 lead changes in the game. I think I punched my knee. How many picks did Sipe have? 2? Twice, at least. There were some other punches as well. But in any case, Mexico City eventually got a game-sealing interception in the end zone on Carolina's final drive. Mexico City wins at 21-13.
And guess what? Sipe threw 3 touchdowns against those 2 picks, which actually got you 21 points there. So kudos to him. And look, and wait for Mexico City to just kind of hang in there and kind of hang with it, and with a tough Carolina team. I thought Carolina would almost laid over and let you guys run over, but they played tough.
Jordan Sipes in the chat right now. He says, chill. So my apologies. I'm just saying. I have bruises because of you. Charleston at Canton. Unfortunately for Charleston, this game kind of went the way that we thought it was going to go. Charleston didn't really have a whole lot of a chance. They did have the lead going into halftime, 7-6. They were held scoreless in the second half. Canton would put up another 21. They got the win, 27-7.
And that's what Canton does, right? We all know Canton, if you can hang with them and get, play with the lead a little bit, it puts them in a different situation. What they do third quarter, they always turn it on and start to railroad people.
Arizona at Florida, potentially the game of the quarterfinals. Arizona got the score first, but then Florida was actually held scoreless in the first quarter. They would not remain scoreless. They ended up putting up 31 unanswered points before Arizona could respond. Florida just never let up. 34-10 the final in that
and the defending champs, they just know how to win games in big moments, and that's what they did.
That is what they did. And that brings us to the semifinals and your updated season 23 SFL playoff bracket. And we're down to the final 4. So we've got Minnesota and Mexico City. That game will be called by Ethan Muslin and Alex West at 9 p.m. this evening. And then, of course, Florida at Canton at 6:30 p.m. right after the show. So you and I will be calling that one, finally back in the booth.
You got to go. We have to go from Canton, Ohio. You got to go to Mexico City. Supersonic jet to the rescue to get you there in enough time.
Yep, absolutely. It's great that we have that jet available to us. Thank you to our commissioner for providing a supersonic jet.
Paying a ton of fuel.
So yeah, that's the updated season 23 bracket. And that brings us into our next segment, which is the road to the semifinals. And we'll start with Florida, the back-to-back defending champions. They're actually 5-time champions, but back-to-back wins these past couple of seasons. They had a three-peat back in seasons 10, 11, and 12 under the Alaska Storm brand. And then they made it again in season 16 and 17, lost both of those games. They made it to the championship in season 21 and 22. They won them both, and they're looking to become the first team in SFL history to three-peat 2 times and stand alone as the team with the most championships with 6. They're currently tied with Baltimore at 5 championships apiece. So how'd they do it this season? They looked unstoppable through week 7, but then they got stunned by Carolina in week 8, followed by a loss to Canton in week 9. Finishing the season out, they won the 3 of the remaining 4 games for a 9-3 record, earned the number 4 seed. They got that first round bye, and then as we know, they absolutely throttled Arizona in the quarterfinal round.
Look, and what they did, they even proved that, hey, look, even though they lost some of those games against some, high quality opponents, all playoff teams, they just know how to win games and just get in, no panic, and they just kind of just cruise and just slid right in.
Jason France wondering if we're going to ignore the fact that this is Minnesota's 2nd straight semifinal and 4th straight playoff appearance. I guess he doesn't know we haven't talked about Minnesota yet, but we're going to talk about Minnesota.
Moose, not really.
He's not a patient moose, which I thought most mooses. It's just moose, I guess.
It's moose.
I thought
Moosin.
Anywho, let's just move on. Let's talk about Canton. A lot of people felt that Canton would win it all last season, season 22. They seem to have the recipe for success. They went 14-0 in the regular season and breezed through the playoffs. They started in the quarterfinal round with a 20-0 win over Baltimore, and then a 33-6 win over DC in the semifinals. But Florida had other plans for them in the championship, ending their season with an L. They're back. They're looking to redeem themselves, starting off the season with a loss to Baltimore. But other than that, and stumbling against Nashville in week 12, they've pretty much looked rock solid all the way, unstoppable, number 1 seed again. 5th season in the league for Canton. They've made the playoffs each of the last 3 seasons, lost in the quarterfinal round the first time, made it to the championship and lost the second time. Maybe a third time's a charm for them, and they go all the way and win the championship this time around.
And they seemingly have gotten, it seemed like they got, ever since they entered the league, they've gotten better almost every season. I know they went undefeated last season, but I think on a different type of level here, even this season, some can even argue that they are better this season with the losses they have, even though they went undefeated last season.
Jason France is antsy. The Moose is antsy. That's why he's chomping at the bit. He wants to hear about Minnesota. He wants us to sing their praises. Even though I'm about to go up against you in the semifinals, I'm still going to speak some praises about Minnesota because they are a fantastic franchise. They're one hell of a franchise, and I'm absolutely terrified to go up against them here in the semifinals. Listen, Minnesota entered the league 5 seasons ago in season 19. They've made the playoffs every season of their existence. There you go, Jason. Just wait for it. Last season, they got their first playoff win over Houston and advanced to the semifinals, just like they did this season. See, he just needed to wait. It was in the notes. They lost to the eventual champions, Florida Storm, 34-12 in that semifinal game. And now here they are again. They started the season with a loss to Indy by only 6 points, but they'd only lose 2 more games all season long. And even those, barely. They lost to DC by 2. They lost to Chicago by 3. I think when Mickey Malillo in that Sasquatch costume headbutted Mike O'Neill, I think that was like the headbutt that changed the trajectory of the rest of their season. He's like, we may have lost, but bam, headbutted them, and they've been headbutting teams ever since the whole rest of the way. Sorry, Mike O'Neill, for the PTSD there, but that's what happened. Listen, they finished the regular season 9-3, their 4th winning season, or 4th winning record, I should say, in their 5-season history, and they secured the number 3 seed. Last week, they faced a tall task going up against the mighty Baltimore Vultures in the quarterfinal. We actually both picked Baltimore in that game. Boy, did they make us look silly. They decided to put up nearly a 50 burger on them, winning 48-21. Their reward, though, they get to head down south of the border to Estadio Matt Willson to face the number 2 Aztecs, and we are not going to roll over easy.
And I don't think they liked us picking Baltimore because what happened was they said, no, this is our house. And even their Sasquatch said, no, we're 4-time defending division champions as well. We're going to come out, and they just railroaded them, outclassed them.
Yeah. 100%. So, all right, Mexico City Aztecs. Far be it for me to not talk up the Mexico City Aztecs. Wearing my Matt Willson jersey. We're going to be wearing the black and red tonight on the field, so I figured it would be only appropriate to ditch my usual classy polo shirt and throw on Matt Willson's jersey. So we hit, listen, it's double the Willson, double the fun. And hopefully it gets us the win. But the Mexico City Aztecs started all the way back as a franchise in season 5 as the Santa Fe Gorillas. They made the championship in that very first season, ultimately losing to the DC Dragons by 1 point. Season 6, they'd follow it up with a 3-9 record. Ramos says, we don't talk about season 6. So that's all I can say. But since that time, for 13 straight seasons, they would make the playoffs, including season 9 when they'd go on to win the championship. Then season 20 happened. Ended 7-5, but missed out on the playoffs. That's why we always bring up 7 wins isn't necessarily enough, because I've lived it, you've lived it with
same
Louisiana.
exact season.
Yep. So there was a lot of 7-5 teams that season. Apparently, season 21 that got even worse, 3-9 again. So we don't talk about season 21 or 6. Was Mexico City finished as a powerhouse franchise? Things I mean, obviously, Matt Willson passed away. We changed up the team. I retired my player. Things just weren't the same anymore. Were they done? No, they were not done. Season 22 showed progress, a 6-6 record, but each of those 6 losses was by only a single score. Ultimately, they missed the playoffs still. Enter season 23, 10-2. The number 2 seed, those 2 losses, number 1 Canton by 3, number 5 Arizona by 4. They haven't lost a game by more than 7 points in over 1 calendar year. 2 full seasons we haven't lost a game by more than 7 points. Every game in the regular season that they won was by 2 scores or more, except for a 1-point win over Houston, because Damon Simeon just loves to just make me like sweat and puts up a fight every time. And I thought for sure we were going to lose that game. I walked out of the room before the game was even done. Then I hear Cam going nuts that we won. In any case, got an 8-point win over Carolina last week, and now we are hosting the number 3 Legend later on tonight.
Look, I've seen the progress you guys have made, right, since you kind of took over, right? It had been such a struggle for you guys for that season. You kind of come in and say, hey, look, I need to see what's going on. I see some things I can fix and progress in each and every season, with this season being by far the best season you guys have had such a dominant team, on both sides of the ball. So we're gonna see how it's gonna shake out later on the night.
We are gonna see. Win or lose, we're going down swinging. And shout out to everybody on the Aztecs roster that was there in season 20 when things started to look bad, and missing out on the playoffs. Then season 21, a lot of those same players stuck around. They came back and they said, you know what, I'm going to trust the process and see where this goes. Season 22, getting to 6-6, and being able to look at those losses and say, yeah, we lost, but one fumble doesn't happen, one pick doesn't happen. We get one more takeaway, and maybe those are wins in this season. 10-2. Each and every one of those guys deserves it. They're there. They progress. They're there on game day, and absolutely love this roster. Pretty much the entire roster's coming back for season 24. And I'm, looking forward to getting that season going. It can't come soon enough. But we're still here. Still a couple more games to do to finish out the season. We can't jump too far ahead. There's a championship to be won yet. So let's talk about that Minnesota at Mexico City game. We've got the number 3 team versus the number 2 team tonight. We've talked about how they got here. Now here we are. There's 4 teams left. And only 2 of those will move on to the championship. Gerald, this is actually at least the second season in a row that the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds are the ones that advanced to the semifinals. It happened last season, happened this season again. It's like the wild card didn't even matter, didn't even need it.
And all these teams proved it all season long, right? That they should be seated exactly where they are, and they proved it by winning the games last week and getting to this point right here with the last 4 teams.
It's going to be a tough game, so let's get into it. Let's start with Minnesota and their offense.
The Minnesota offense plays a style of offense that I think coaches dream about, right? Having, even a team like me, right? So they keep themselves in third and short most of the time, which has contributed to their successes on third down. They were over 50% last week in their third down and on third down in their beat down versus Baltimore.
Yeah.
They were able also to, take 4 turnovers and turn them into 24 points. Yeah. And another one, another 7 they got on a kickoff return as well. So, look, and that's the way that they, kind of put it. Look, their defense put their offense in a great position to succeed, and they took every opportunity to capitalize on it, and they did, and it showed. They scored 48 points. But where they were able to get those extra possessions was due to the defense. Yes, they have a top 5 passer and the touchdown passing leader in Johnny Reno. Yes, they had the rushing leader in the league in Colin Hart, but they didn't look as sharp on offense like I'm used to seeing them last week, right? So Reno threw last week for 84% completion, right? When his completion rate was near 60% during the regular season, but on his completed passes, he averaged 16 yards per reception by his receiving core.
Yeah.
The running back core averaged 1 yard less a carry last week than they did during the regular season. Is that anything to be concerned about, at all with the talent they have? I don't think so, right? But they will need to have their offense execute like the number 2 offense that they have and do anything to get past the Mexico City defense. And because what you guys do, you guys force a lot of turnovers.
Yeah.
If they can stay mistake-free, they will have the best chance offensively to score points.
Yeah, they're going to have to watch out for Liam Ryan. My opinion, might be biased, best nickel corner in the game. I'm looking for him to get not 1, but 2 picks tonight. We'll see what happens. Minnesota's defense is great, too. They also force a lot of turnovers. They forced 4 last week, one of which was a pick 6, and all of which resulted in points.
Look, and they did great right there. Look, they weren't able to get the sacks that they're used to getting and everything else, but they were able, to get there and knock out a former MVP quarterback Jack Wigmore out of the game.
Yep.
Fairly early, and it brought in the backup, right, which made it a little bit easy pickings for the defense, shall I say, right? So they had 3 interceptions, a forced fumble that they never recovered, and they only had 1 sack to get them that victory. But like I said, they played versus a backup quarterback for most of the game, which allowed them to be able to put it in kind of cruise control, right, as kind of the game progressed on, the way the game went. So not saying they are not a good defense. They're among the league's best, actually, right?
Yeah.
But going up against another top and healthy offense, it might present a little bit of challenge for them later on the night.
Yeah, we will see. So why don't we get into Mexico City and talk about what the Aztecs have been able to do.
Look, and their game last week, it was a lot. It was the closest game out of the games last week, right?
Yep.
So it's not what we expected at all. Look, getting an interception in the last few minutes of the game was able to secure the win for them. Look, their offense was not dynamic as I'm used to seeing, right?
Yep.
You guys are typically dynamic and have a lot of different things going on. Good run game, good pass game, right? But you guys were able to force some uncomfortable situations for the opposing team. So look, you guys had the number 1 scoring offense and was held in check for most. the number 2 scoring offense was held in check for most of the game.
Yeah.
Jordan Sipe came through with 3 touchdowns, all 3 of them to 3 different
we spread
players.
it around. Yep.
Despite him throwing, as you said, his 2 interceptions. The run game, by Bentley and Morrison, who averaged, over 4 yards a carry, which was really, really good. They're now you guys are now facing one of the best defenses in the league, so you'll have to play mistake-free football and not put yourselves in a situation like last week. Because I think if you get yourself in a situation like last week, say it's close and put it in, because we know how efficient Minnesota can be, right? If you guys can get yourselves in there and actually, establish the run game early and keep yourselves in a third and manageable type situation, it will give you guys the best chance on offense to reach the first championship game in a very long time.
Very long time. And, if we are going to get there, the defense is going to need to help the offense out because we're going up against a powerhouse team like the Minnesota Legends. The defense, stars of the game last week, they came through in the clutch, bend but don't break all game, and then ultimately sealed the win for us with the pick.
And it was a pick got in the end zone right at the end, right when Carolina was trying to tie up the game. So this week, you guys are facing a much better opponent, in my opinion. That brings the number 3 scoring offense, the number 2 total offense in the SFL to Estadio Matt Willson. Can it work to you guys' advantage of having that thing in the semifinal game? The first time you guys been in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So look, you guys are going to have to slow down the league's rushing champ, along with forcing Minnesota into 3rd and long situations, which are not typically in a whole lot. So your secondary is going to have to do the best, and that is take the ball away.
Yep.
Because you guys are extremely good. You guys do that probably better than most teams around the league. That gives you the best chance to do it. I think if you stop the run, You have to force Johnny Reno to beat you.
Yep.
And I think if you do that, it plays right into the defense's hands of Mexico City.
Well, we'll see what happens. Liam Ryan, I've called you out. Come through for me now. There is one more show that I've got to stand here in front of the camera, and I don't want to be standing here looking sad. So we'll see what happens at that game coming up at 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Coming up next in about 10 minutes time, Florida at Canton. Last season's championship teams face off in the semifinals this season. Only one will advance to the championship this time. Gerald, we just talked about Minnesota at Mexico City, the number 2 seed, the number 3 seed, number 2 scoring offense, number 3 scoring offense. And now we've got the 2 teams that were in the championship last season. This is why I say the semifinals are the best games of the season. The championship will be great no matter what. But man, these 2 games.
Dude, it's and that's what I said. Like, it's the top 4 teams in the league right here, right? But even by seeding and how they played throughout the season, the top 4 teams, and it's gonna be a great night.
Let's get into Florida and their offense.
Look, the Storm continued their postseason dominance last week by winning their 7th postseason game in a row. That's mean you're winning through the postseason championship. The record, believe it or not, is held by Baltimore, has 14 consecutive postseason wins. Right. So, and their 7th win this week for the Florida Storm was against Arizona. Their offense ran for over 200 yards last week with fullback Chris Comisak, who had 114 yards himself, along with 2 touchdowns. That's his first 100-yard game of this season as well. Hall of Famer quarterback Ron Cochran was excellent as well when he was asked to throw, completing 72% of his passes and threw 2 touchdowns as well.
Yeah.
Last season in the championship game, wide receiver Art Vandelay was the X factor in the run game. It surprised Canton, I think, the entire league, which ultimately took Florida to victory. This time around, they cannot rely on the element of surprise because they done seen it already.
Yep.
They will have to play ball control offense and win the time of possession, along with getting an early lead on Canton. Those who are able to do that have been the most successful against, versus this Canton defense. The Florida offense will have to play mistake-free as well, because the Canton defense has a knack for forcing turnovers and turning them directly into points. The defending champs' offense has their work cut out for them, especially considering they were shut out by the same Canton team in week 9. Florida on offense will have to have no wasted possessions, I believe, to be the best this Canton defense.
Max Paul looked at that week 9 game, and I guarantee you said that's not happening again, and has been planning for it ever since, because when a game like that happens, you start planning for the rematch, because you don't know when it'll be, but it's going to happen, and you want to be ready that time.
It's a huge moment.
It is a huge moment for both of the franchises, honestly. If Florida is going to get to their 3rd straight championship and try to become the first team in SFL history to three-peat 2 times, the defensive unit is going to be a large part of the reason why they've been one of the best all season long. Talk about that.
And they've only allowed 1 touchdown over the last 8 quarters, while only allowing 8 points per game during that span as well. They just know how to slow down a run game with their 5th best rushing defense, and they play the line of scrimmage extremely well. I say that all the time, and it reflects in the stat column as well. They are number 3 in tackle for losses in the SFL. Look, and they will also have to count on their linebackers and DB, the cores together, both in the 2nd and 3rd level defenders, to keep the league's number 1 rushing attack in check. And if they are able to do that, they might find themselves in their record 8th championship game with a chance to be the first franchise to win their 6th SFL title.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what they're able to do. All starts in just a few minutes time. We got Jordan Sipe in the chat, Jason France in the chat. They're jawing back and forth. They're amped up for that 9 p.m. game. Dan Tritz is here now. Ron Haynes is in the chat praying. Oh man, everything's just going nuts. I love it. Semifinal football is here. Talk about Canton.
Look, Canton has arguably been the best team in SFL the last 2 seasons. They've seemingly breezed through their opponents on a consistent basis. Their offense has been top of the league in rushing the last 2 seasons, behind Logan Lee and Robert Johnson, with their rushing offense collectively, with like 3 or 4 quarterbacks included, fullbacks, whatever, with rushing over 2,000 yards on the season. I don't think any other team has that luxury of saying that this season at all. Look, they know exactly who they are, which is a run first team, and they don't give no rats behind on who cares about it because they do it better than anyone else in the league.
Yep.
They average 173 yards on the ground per game. And if you think about it, it's an unreal type statistic.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Because just think about an average. You have to rush above that consistently, right? To make 100.
To make an average.
It's kind of crazy. They ran for 300 yards on the ground last week. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. This Canton team have won their games and gotten this far by brute force, by literally running over the competition with their dominant run game. Those that have been successful have slowed their run game just enough to force them to pass, which is their only weakness in my mind, right? The passing game of Canton leaves a lot to be desired with quarterback Scar Patterson, with it in terms of his passing ability. He has not proven on a consistent basis that he's able to carry the passing offense when the run game gets slowed down. Just last week, in their big win, he threw 3 picks. 3 picks. You cannot have that kind of a offensive passing game, throw 3 interceptions and put you in a bad spot. This week could present a challenge because one thing the defending champs are good at is taking the ball away.
Yep.
And that is forced you to get into uncomfortable situations. And guess what? It can lead to turnovers. So they're going to have to make sure to get that running game going and be timely and strategic with allowing Scar Patterson to pass.
And not just taking the ball away, but also taking away what you're good at. If they know the Canton's good at running, they're going to try to take that away.
Yep.
They're going to make you throw, and then they're going to get picks. That secondary is a lethal secondary. They've been around. A lot of them are very experienced vets. They've been around a long time. The defense for Canton, though, absolutely unbelievable. Hands down, the best ever over these past 2 seasons. It's unstoppable.
Right, and they have been number one in every possible category. You name it, they have been the best at it. They sacked the quarterback more than any other team in the SFL. The defense is led by linebacker Kevin Bragg, who has played out of his mind this season with his league-leading 11 sacks, his 3 defensive touchdowns, which is good. He's got 2 pick sixes, and he's got a fumble recovery for a touchdown as well. This defense is extremely tough to move the ball against and tough to score against as well, which is it's just crazy. Just last week, they had 4 interceptions versus that Charleston team. Let's not forget the mid-season in week 9, they shut out the Florida Storm, right? They aim to make a statement and that they should be the defending champs because they feel like they let last season's championship slip away from them. So I think this defense is really going, and they proved it last week, and they may prove it again this week. They're looking to.
They very well may. I mean, they were the team to beat last season. I thought maybe with that loss to Baltimore in week 1, this season was going to be different. And well, hey, look, they've fallen back down to earth, and they're like, yeah, hold my beer. I think they have beer in Canton. I'm sure they probably do.
I'm sure they do.
Hold something. Hold my Hall of Fame jacket for a second. Listen, they've been a phenomenal team. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see them back in the championship. It wouldn't surprise me to see them win the championship, whether they face the Aztecs or Minnesota. I mean, they're a great team, but all 3 of those teams are. They got their eyes on them. They're gunning for them, starting with Florida, and we'll see firsthand in just a couple minutes' time what they'll be able to do. So let's talk about our picks. I am 28-17. You are 27-18. It couldn't be even closer. Still 2 more picks left to make this season. We'll pick one of the semifinal games tonight, and then, of course, the championship. Last week, we both picked Florida, Canton, Mexico City, and Baltimore, and, of course, Florida, Canton, Mexico City, and Minnesota got the win. We'll only pick the game that we're not calling. Minnesota at Mexico City. Who do you got?
All right, look, Minnesota has had a great season. Mexico City has had a great season. I just think Mexico City playing at home and what's at stake here. Not saying Minnesota is going to get blown out anyway. They played very good, but I think Mexico City looked at the film, right? First time you guys been in playoffs in a little while.
Yep.
I think it's a little bit of kind of jitters and got the nervousness out of you this week. They know what you guys messed up on. You guys are going to come in this week. You're going to play a lot better than you did last week. I think Mexico City wins it by 3 points.
3 points. 3 points. Listen, Robert Henson's been waiting for this pick. I've thought long and hard. I analyzed a lot of things. I did some soul searching. I dug down deep, and I had to think, who do I think is going to win this game? Mexico City going to win this game. That's who. I'm picking the Aztecs. I'd pick the Aztecs against any team, any day. I have to. I love this team. I think that they're going to win it all, and it starts tonight with getting this win. But who knows? Much respect to the Minnesota Legend organization. They are a phenomenal organization. They've made the playoffs consistently. They're here again in the semifinals, and Robert Henson is shocked by my pick. I know it's shocking,
Can't believe it either.
What else can I say? Nothing but respect to the legend. Good luck tonight, and I'll be rooting for the Aztecs. Listen, Mickey Malillo is our guy, but I hope he shanks every kick. We'll see. Listen, Florida at Canton kicks off next. Who will get the win? As Matt Willson would say, there's only one way to find out, and that's on the field. Gerald and I headed to the booth. We will see you there. Don't go anywhere.